And earlier this morning, we saw a very interesting admission from the Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton. He was asked about this speech from Anthony Albanese and whether Mr Albanese poses a bigger threat in that state electorally than Bill Shorten.
I think Anthony Albanese is a bigger threat than Bill Shorten, and a bigger threat, frankly, than even Kevin Rudd or Julia Gillard. Now, every Labor leader says that they aren't going to tax and spend, but they always say it when they're in opposition. And when they get into government, they tax and spend. And so at the last election, Mr Albanese was a senior figure in the Shorten opposition who had ticked off on jacking up taxes for all Australians.
Well, there you go. We won't quite call it praise, but says he'll be a bit more of a threat. Meanwhile, Peter Dutton's also calling on Anthony Albanese to repudiate Paul Keating's criticism of security agencies.
That's right. The Home Affairs Minister today really backing in the intel agencies after the comments we'd seen from the former Prime Minister Paul Keating on Monday. He was addressing the Australian Security Forum, focused specifically on China, but he made the claim that he had made previously where he'd called security agencies nutters in the past. This time he says that they have a phobia when it comes to China. The Home Affairs Minister says that sort of comment and that language needs to be repudiated by the current Labor leader.
I wouldn't characterise the law enforcement agencies or our intelligence agencies in the way that Paul Keating has. I think he's done a disservice to the professionalism of our agencies, and for him to denigrate them in such a way, I think, frankly, Mr Albanese should condemn those comments, and I think they reflect more on Mr Keating than they do on any of our agency heads.
Now, from Labor sources I've spoken to, there certainly isn't an appetite as it stands to repudiate those sort of comments from Paul Keating, arguing he's big enough and ugly enough to defend them himself. Also interesting, just to quickly point out, that we heard from the former ASIO boss Duncan Lewis today. He's really sounded the alarm when it comes to foreign interference and the threat posed by China. He warns that it's insidious and that they are really undertaking a big campaign to try and influence not only politicians but also members of the media. So quite a stark warning there from Duncan Lewis.